Greetings and salutations there, Screen Watchers. This is the Screen Watching Podcast, your favorite podcast dedicated to the world of TV, streaming, and film. My name's Dan Barrett, joined by Simon Foster, and boy, do we have a cracking podcast for you this week. We are blitzing through the titles this week. We are talking Mortal Kombat 2. We're talking about the surprise TV sensation of 2026 called Gary. Shh, quietly, it's a spin-off from The Bear. We'll talk about that in a bit. There's the Sheep Detectives, there's Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Simon Foster, I don't know if you're aware of this, the actual full title of the Screen Watching podcast is Screen Watching, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Maybe we sue, maybe we don't, we'll decide later on in the podcast. And then also I want to take a look at a TV show, which was a very big surprise to me because I didn't realize it existed up until yesterday afternoon. And then I watched it last night, I was like, boy, this is a pretty good show. It's called Legends. We'll talk about why that's interesting shortly, but first, we're going to play an opening titles, and then I'm going to remember there was one other thing we're doing this week on the podcast, which is we are talking about the upcoming, we're going to refer to it as the American summer box office, but here in Australia it's winter. So it's really the Australian winter box office, but talking mostly about American movies. Folks, Screen Watching is filled with all sorts of contradictions like that. Stick around, you'll enjoy. Or you won't, I don't know. Here's the opening titles.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother! Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, Simon Foster, big week, ... question mark, exclamation point.
Dan Barrett, how are you, sir? It has been a big week. Hello, Screen Watchers the world over. Yes, lots to watch this week, lots to discuss in terms of the screens that we have been watching. I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on the Billie Eilish film, knowing what a huge James Cameron fan you are. And there's so much to talk about in the world of Mortal Kombating. Combating, is that a word? It really should be.
Is there?
So good. You're well, I'm assuming.
Look, I am well. Simon Foster, I just want to dive right in because we've got
Sure.
stuff to get through this week. Can I talk to you about a little TV show called Gary? And I'm going to say right now, let's throw to a trailer, but I don't know there actually is a trailer for this. So maybe we can find a scene from somewhere or something to edit in. We'll find out. Folks, here's some sort of clip from Gary.
All right, so we get in there, we're talking math, and all of a sudden, I feel my entire insides just turn to liquid, and I gotta take a shit, like, bad. But I know that she got one little bathroom right there, this tiny thing, and I know if I go in there, she's gonna hear everything, you know? And I'm just like, I mean, on the outside, I'm cool as a cucumber, you know, we're talking math, and on the inside, I'm just like, come on, asshole, don't you fucking fail me now, baby. And somehow, by the grace of God, I make it through this fucking tutor session, right?
That's not helpful.
So, Roxanne, pleasure to meet you. I'll see you next Thursday, you know, blah, blah, blah. I get outside, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna fucking make it. I start to walk, quickly back up, back down, and it just comes out. That's it. And it's just like, that's what is happening. And I start to pull my drawers down, my pants down. I look like one of those, photographs of the guys that just discovered oil, you know, like with like stuff is gurgling. I can't tell what's coming up, and it's just like.
Simon, Gary is not a man. He's not a state of mind, although maybe he's all of these things in a sense. Gary is the Gary, Indiana, a little place in Indiana, which is located about 35 minutes away from Chicago, which is the setting of your favorite TV show, my favorite TV show, and our listeners' favorite TV show, The Bear. Now, people didn't know Gary existed up until maybe Monday, Tuesday morning, maybe even Wednesday morning. Like, just no one knew this existed. Last week, Simon and I had this chat, and it's like, what are we going to discuss next week? And I was like, there are no TV shows at all to discuss this upcoming week.
That's true.
Lo and behold, one of the biggest TV shows of the year just got dropped in our laps.
What?
No one knew this existed.
It's your job to
Okay,
know
so
about these
basically-
things, Dan Barrett. Dan Barrett,
No,
how
no,
did this
Simon,
just happen?
No, Simon, literally nobody knows.
Oh, wow.
Basically what happened was, I'm going to say it was Tuesday morning. I can't even remember. Time is a flat circle or something. There's a Instagram post that comes out from even Moss Backrack from The Bear. And
The actor. Yeah.
Fantastic Four and Girls and, you know, all sorts of other stuff that we've loved that guy in. he sends out this Instagram post and is like, hey guys, surprise episode of, well, I don't think he called it a surprise episode of The Bear. He called it a prequel to The Bear. And it's this thing called Gary. Now, if you jump onto your Disney Plus or Hulu in the US or, wherever else you are in the world, if you jump on there and try to find this in the Bear section, it's not there. It's its own freestanding thing. And this, while it is a prequel to The Bear, I think the best way to look at this is that it's a one-off, 1 hour movie, which is just a spin-off from The Bear. So you don't really need to watch The Bear to understand what's happening in Gary. And if you never watch Gary, you'll be perfectly fine with The Bear going forward.
So it's an
It
Eben
does
Moss.
provide an extra bit of context.
It's a Moss Backrack starring person, like starring
Just
venture?
wait. Hold tight.
Well, I'm intrigued.
So it's a freestanding thing. You can watch it by itself. Okay. It will inform The Bear, but you don't need that either. Okay. When it is up for Emmy Awards, they're calling it an episode of The Bear, but it's not. It's an entirely different thing. It kind of looks a bit different to The Bear. Its color palette's a bit different. It's its own thing. So what this is Ebon Moss-Bachrach's character, Richie, prior to The Bear starting, he was best friends with this guy named Mikey. Okay, Mikey, we've seen, played by John Bernthal. He has been seen in flashbacks on The Bear, and he is the older brother of, is it Carmen? Carmen. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've seen The Bear. Carmen, the main character in The Bear, but he'd committed suicide.
Yeah.
His suicide left Carmen to return back to the family fold and take over the restaurant, and that sort of kicks things off. What this TV program Gary is it takes place maybe, I don't know, we'll say maybe half a year before The Bear started. Well, sorry, half a year before Mikey committed suicide. And then maybe a few weeks after that is when The Bear kicks off. Okay, so what we're watching is kind of like the sort of, we'll say, up to a year before Mikey has died. So it's kind of him in that sort of state of mind as you're watching this knowing, because you've seen The Bear, that this character is going to commit suicide and that he's maybe not in the most sort of mentally healthy space. So like that's some pre-assumed knowledge that you can have, but also you kind of get that vibe from him while you're watching it, and this kind of delves into the thing. So what this is, it's a two-hander. It is John Bernthal playing Mikey. It is Ebon Moss-Bachrach playing Richie, and the two of them go on a road trip one day to do a job, and they're just carrying a package to a guy. And it's really the two of them. It's a shaggy story about the two of them taking a road trip really far away from home as far as the Richie character is concerned. But it's only 35 minutes away from where they actually live. He just doesn't head out of Chicago ever. But it's just these two friends who have a relationship that is built on decades of history together from when they were both little kids. And they're going on this journey and they're feeding off each other's very masculine charisma, which, we've seen illustrated in The Bear before. But during their travel, they find themselves at this bar. And while they're at a bar, there's some uncomfortable truths that come out as part of that. And then also you start getting a bit of an insight into the thinking of a man who's going to end his own life in just a couple of months' time. It's all contained within an hour. It's funny, it's really dark and complicated and interesting. And I didn't know this existed. And I'm really glad this is now part of my cultural consumption as I live this life of mine.
So when you say it's outside of the whole Bear universe, the whole Bear...
I mean, it's within the Bear universe. It's not part of the show.
Do they use the same title credits? Is it an entirely different opening sequence? It's a whole different thing.
There's no sequence. I'm not sure if they actually have a title card or not.
Okay. This just seems unusual. Can you think of anything like this being... I mean, there's spin-off series, there's spin-off stuff going on, but anything like this jump to mind as happening previously? And why do it?
Look, I mean, not in this way. Oh, why do they do it? There's the question. Look... In terms of, has this sort of thing been done before? I mean, there's been sort of follow-ups that have been kind of announced, like particularly through COVID, we saw like, the Parks and Recreation sort of like pop-up show where the characters sort of come back, and we've seen that kind of thing. But I don't know, I'm struggling to think of a moment where a show mid-series has suddenly dropped a surprise episode like this.
To why it happens,
also,
this sounds...
maybe it's not an episode is the other thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Conversation around this.
If it's a standalone,
yeah,
it certainly sounds like a. Do we need to appease someone for contract reasons? Is this something we do to get Ebon back on board for season 4 or whatever?
To answer your question, I think there's two reasons this exists. So what I didn't talk about is the writers of this program. It is John Bernthal and Ebon Musbachrak.
Okay, so there
They
you go.
wrote this.
Yeah.
So they wrote this. I think that what this is two actors who I think are on fairly good terms. They're both on a Broadway show together at the moment.
Yep.
I think these guys, they really like each other. I think that through conversations they've had, they're like, hey, we'd like to explore this a little bit further. The director of this is Christopher Storer, who's the creator of The Bear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's certainly linked to it. But I think this is like an organic thing that's happened from two actors who just really wanted to try this and do it.
Okay.
Now, the other question is, why did they do this? Or maybe why did they drop this right now in the throes of May? It is because the Emmy Awards, the eligibility period for it ends at the end of May. The Bear drops new seasons at the beginning of June generally.
Mm.
So that's 11 months. The Bear didn't do as well at the Emmy Awards last year. So by dropping this right before the eligibility period finishes and including this in as part of The Bear as a series, it means that you can then, refresh Emmy voters' minds saying, hey, look, this is a vital TV program. What I think it does, though, is it doesn't actually open the door at all to nominations for, it doesn't elevate the chances for people who are Bearcast members. Instead, I think it kind of takes an actor who was a recurring guest star at best and puts him front and center in the middle of the conversation. And Ebon Musbachrak, despite the fact that he is front and center in this, I don't think has quite as much of a showy performance. But also, I think people love Ebon Musbachrak, and this last sort of year has really just elevated him. He's got that sort of heat from the Fantastic Four movie. He's just been a bit more prominent and out there. So maybe this does sort of lift him up there and sort of remind people how much they love about this guy.
Also strategically placed for award season consideration is Mortal Kombat 2. Let's play a clip.
You want to know what makes a hero? It's not destiny. It's not something you're born with. It's searching for greatness.
Johnny Cage, you have been chosen for Mortal Kombat.
Then realizing you've had it in you this entire time.
Whoa! I really don't feel comfortable hitting a girl.
Don't worry. You won't.
Joe, send me back. I want to go back.
Can I ask a question before you get into this, Simon?
Yeah.
Were you excited about seeing this movie?
Well, I quite liked the first one. For the first one, and I guess I can talk about this in a minute, but the first one for me sort of kick-started a whole sort of, so they can get video game adaptations right. And if they sort of break out of the mold a bit, then it's but to say I was excited, yeah. But to say I was keen how they followed it up, I don't know.
I got the invite to the screener and I sat down, I looked at it for a moment, thought, why am I not interested in this? And then I thought, what even happened in the first one? I know I saw it, but I don't have any recollection, so I just got on with my life.
The major fan event that I went through the week was for this Mortal Kombat 2 film. The distributor sort of put on a whole big thing at the IMAX here at Sydney, and it was a big thing. They put on the stage, they had people coming in doing twirls and kickboxing sort of moves, and they had all the stars there from Carl Urban on down. And then we all sort of settled in for the movie, and the general feeling you could tell amongst the audience was
that they were able to get the Carl Urban.
Carl Urban came all the way from his home on the South Island of New Zealand and stood out the front of a fairly hefty crowd. They filled a good part of Darling Harbour, the foreground, not the water, and it was quite a spectacular event. But then we all sort of settled in for the movie. And while it also being a spectacular event, the mood in the cinema sort of shifted just a little bit at about the halfway point when it was, it became clear to everybody that this is kind of like one of those old video game movies where things are sort of happening, but nothing's really happening. Let me just put that in context. You asked me whether I was excited to see this. I kind of was, because the first one sort of, as I mentioned, said to me that we're maybe heading into a new era of video game movies, and that it was a way of sort of embracing the old in the form of an old video game and turning it into something new. And then the first one had character, and it had comedy, and it had a good role for Urban, and it had a lot of good sort of backstory to some of the characters, but it also provided great action. And so I came out of it surprised, and pleasantly so. And I have never said that before previously about a video game adaptation to my knowledge. So then you go into this one, and all the same people are back. Simon McQuoid is directing, all shot on the Gold Coast of Queensland, so it employs all the finest Australian craftspeople and technicians we can offer.
Sorry, who does Gary Sweet play in this?
Gary Sweet. Oh, that would have been good. Well, I think Josh Lawson, who is very much channeling Gary Sweet in this one. Josh Lawson seems like
He really is the 20th century's Gary Sweet.
He is the modern Gary Sweet. But he goes full sort of Australian in the way he talks in 21st century. So I quite enjoy, and I was quite thankful for Lawson's comedy performance, because the rest of the movie's a little bit stiff, a little bit sort of, these characters, having had their origin stories in the first film, don't really have a whole lot to do in this one. You kind of go along to these movies to see how good the action, and in the case of Mortal Kombat, the violent action and fight scenes are. And there's certainly a couple of moments which have pushed this into the MA category here in Australia, the rating category, or the R category over in the US, if you're listening there. Kids, just be mindful that it's got some pretty sort of gruesome stuff in there.
Simon Foster, who clearly has never played the video game.
I've never played the video game. I know of the video game, and I know the whole ripping of the spine out and all that sort of stuff. So that's fine. And that's all in this. Carl Urban is back and does sort of a one-note comedy performance where he's kind of ripping off Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China. In fact, at one point in the film, he references Big Trouble in Little China, which is always dangerous when you give away your motivations. To me, the breakout star of this one is Adeline Rudolph. She plays Katana, who's got the blade fan and sort of does and it's really her story in this film that's the most interesting and the most engaging. Otherwise, you get the chop socky sort of kickboxing action and all the special effectsy stuff, and it's good, but it's all pretty shallow and pretty hollow, and it runs very long too. This felt like a long movie. So this one's, whereas the first one broke out of the video game movie mold and was a standalone sort of enjoyment in itself, this one is very much, I think, for the fans only, which is a backward step for the Mortal Kombat franchise. So it's in cinemas everywhere now. I don't think it's going to be around very long. I don't think it's going to have the legs that the first one had, or the box office pull that's going to last right through the American summer, which we'll be talking about later. But it is in cinemas right now if you're quick.
All right. Simon, a film which, sometimes movies come out and it's like, wait, this is kind of the exact same movie as this other one that's also out right now.
I know of those, yes.
Yeah, let's play a quick clip of The Sheep Detectives.
If there's one secret to happiness in my life, it's taking care of the kindest creatures on earth. Sheep. I want you to meet my flock.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be.
I keep them well fed, well groomed, and each day I read out loud to them mysteries, whodunits.
I know who the killer was.
I like to pretend that they follow along, but they're only sheep.
Ah! Why would he stop there?
He was just about to say who the killer was.
This is torture. It was the maid, right?
When I wake up.
Wake up! Everybody wake up!
We found George on the grass, and he's not moving.
What?
Lily, tell us what to do.
Our shepherd was murdered. And we shall solve the crime.
All right, Simon Foster, I was just kidding around. The Sheep Detectives is nothing like Mortal Kombat. It's not a single thing like it.
I see what you were doing there. Yeah, no, that would be a tough thing to pull off. What is the Sheep Detective about?
So The Sheep Detectives, plural.
Oh.
I went to a screening a couple of months ago of this animated film called Goat, which was kind of terrible. But beforehand, I saw this trailer for a movie that I'd never heard anything about called The Sheep Detectives. And I was won over instantly.
Oh my God.
I thought this is such a funny, silly idea, and I'm very much down for it. The premise of this movie is basically you've got Hugh Jackman as a farmer. He's British. It's in a British countryside, and he's affecting British accents. He's this country farmer named George. He's a bit of a hermit, doesn't really talk to anyone else, lives in a caravan on his farm, and he spends a lot of time with his sheep. He really loves his sheep. He sees them from morning through to night, and he ends every night by sitting down with his sheep and he reads a old detective story, and he sort of reads it aloud to them, and he likes to think they're listening to him, but he knows that they're not. And we know this because there's a narration over the top as you hear him talking about living his life. That's going on. What he doesn't realize is that the sheep actually are listening to him, and that every night they really enjoy sitting down and listening to a detective story, which comes in handy because shortly after the movie starts, he's murdered.
Oh, one for the kids,
And
Oh, this is cute.
And so, wait a sec, hear the title, The Sheep Detectives. I think we all know what's going to happen now. The sheep go to solve the mystery of their farmer's demise.
Oh, I thought they killed him like that Black Sheep movie from New Zealand a few years back. I thought the sheep turned on him.
Well, maybe they did. I mean, we don't know who the killer is
Ooh.
until the very end. So, look, this is a thing which, live action, you've got a whole bunch of celebrities that have been hired to do voices. Jill Louis-Dreyfus, Bryan Cranston, Chris O'Dowd, Regina Hall, Patrick Stewart, Bella Ramsey, Rhys Darby, and playing two horned sheep is Brett Goldstein. So he plays Reggie and Ronnie with the exact same voice. He doesn't really change it at all, which I think is probably the funniest thing that happens in this movie.
All right.
Okay, so you've got all of that happening, but then you've also got the investigation taking place. So you've got Hugh Jackman, who's obviously passed, but then you've got this cast of characters that includes people like Nicholas Braun from Succession. He plays the dumb police guy that is charged with solving this murder. Now, he's never solved a murder before in his life or even confronted a murder or a dead body, so this is a bit of a challenge for him. You've got Molly Gordon, who, look, we know her from a bunch of indie films in the last couple of years, but also from The Bear, which we talked about a little while ago. Hong Chau's in this, Emma Thompson, look, a couple of other familiar faces you'd know in there. And then also added to the cast is Nicholas Galitzine.
Sure.
Don't know his name because no one really knows him yet, but he's going to become not a household name in a couple of months' time when the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe film come out. This film, much like He-Man, both through the team at MGM. So, I kind of feel that maybe he's been cast in this to feed him.
Move things along for Nicholas, yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel that's what's happening here because he doesn't do anything in this that makes me think he was the best man for this role. That doesn't happen. So what you've got in this is these sheep going along solving the mystery. Now, it's all very charming and storybook in its style, and it's all there in the trailer. And the reviews for this have been overwhelmingly very positive. And I don't get it because the trailer absolutely won me over. I think it's a very funny idea for a premise. But once you get to that premise, you're left with a murder mystery that feels just the same as every other really generic, cozy murder mystery TV show coming out of the UK over the last, bunch of years. So this feels like a really bad episode of Midsummer Murders or, well, not bad, an uninspired episode of Midsummer Murders or Death in Paradise or just Shakespeare and Hathaway. It just kind of feels like one of those, but blown out to a 90-minute premise. Well, it might be 110 minutes or something. Looking it up now. 109 minutes.
You said it was from it was MGM Amazon. Is that what you were saying, that it's through that organization?
Yeah.
So what they've done is throw in
millions
and millions of dollars.
They're distributing in the US.
They're throwing millions and millions of dollars at getting a name cast in there to make sure that it's got pull when it hits the small screen. It totally sounds like trying to riff on, the talking animals thing. Obviously, the high watermark for that is Babe, and that's true.
Simon, I wouldn't think about this as being necessarily a play for streaming. Certainly, everything they commission probably has an idea of will this play with streaming?
There's no
but
way
I think
it
this
should
probably
be this
came a bit more
cast-heavy.
organically.
No.
To me, this feels just a little bit more like they've certainly amped it up a bit, but it is just every kid's film that gets sort of released. It's not for young kids. I debated whether I should take my daughter along who's only 4, and I'm glad I didn't because it enters some sort of fairly dark terrain. But if you've got a child that's maybe sort of 6 or 7 and above and you're looking for a good family film, this is perfectly fine. It's just not a great one, but it's a perfectly entertaining one where I was never bored by it, but I was always about maybe 10% away from being bored. through a lot of it, and only because it just felt like an uninspired, cozy murder mystery story.
Why is it this cast
The problem
heavy?
with the movie...
Why is it this cast
Well,
heavy?
sorry. The problem with the movie, Simon, is that it doesn't sort of play with its premise and get weird enough. So, like, there's this...
It's safe.
For example, there's an ongoing plot in it where you've got a baby sheep, I believe they're called a lamb, who is... I forget the seasons,
Slow
but
down,
I think
old
it's...
McDonald.
I think it's a awesome sheep, but we all know that most sheep are born in spring, and so the spring ones are the healthy ones, and so the autumn sheep is a little bit sickly. Okay, and so like there's a thing where sheep within sheep communities like frown upon that, and so this lamb's a bit of an outcast. But then they never really play up sort of anything that's kind of particularly creative about that as an idea. Like I would expect that, if I'm writing this story, okay, and we'll talk about who the writer is in a moment because that's noteworthy. If I'm writing the story, I'm like, well, the sheep see him as an outcast, and then maybe at the end we find out that he's really actually a real shit of a sheep, and that he deserves everything he's getting. But instead, it goes through the very hackneyed thing of, they all come around on the, the deadbeat sheep, and he's celebrated by the end because he does a little heroic thing by the end of the movie.
Does it ever address
it's just dumb and goes through the motions?
Does it ever
now,
address the issue
wrote
that mares eat oats and does
the person who wrote this should know better. Simon, okay, stop. I'm going to have to edit that out. Okay. It's a real shame that the writing's so bad on it because the writer of it is Craig Mazin, who we've known as a very successful TV writer, penning things like The Last of Us, Chernobyl, a whole bunch of highfalutin, well-written TV programs. Writing this, it's just not clever enough.
So they're pitching Innocence with a huge budget and a big voice cast, and it kind of sucks because that's a really cynical way to win audiences over. There are a lot of Amazon dollars behind this, which sort of sucks as well.
But also, let's not think about the cast as being particularly like that amazing. Like
in terms of why are they casting Bryan Cranston and Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this sort of stuff when there's no reason to? If they're
okay, but Simon, just think about like every other animated kids film that we've seen for like the last sort of 15, 20 years. They're all stacked with pretty good cast. Like, it's not like this is a real aberration in terms of it. And like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, like, it's not like she's the biggest name in animation. They haven't gotten The Rock to voice something. Like, it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Like, I think the level of stardom here is perfectly fine for a family film pitched in the way that it is. I don't know that it's worth getting too hung up on that. I'd get more hung up if they had some of these cast members as actual cast who have spent more than 3 days working on the movie. But like in terms of the people that you're seeing on screen, it's that guy from Succession that we haven't really seen much since Succession. It's
playing a British
the
cop?
guy who's yeah. But I think he might be British. But maybe he's not. I don't know. It's movie magic. You've got the guy who's in the upcoming He-Man movie. You've got Molly Gordon, whose biggest success is like that.
I'm not talking about Molly Gordon. I'm talking about all the names you rattled off as the voices. I'm talking about all the names you rattled off as sellable as the voice cast of the animals on the farm. That's what we're talking about here. They're only cast.
I'm talking, Simon, about the people who are actually really in the movie that you see for the most part. I'm not talking about the celebrities that I've given a pretty good payday to just be a voice on a poster, or a name on a poster.
Wow. If you're thinking they're only cast there to be a name on the poster, and this is an Amazon-backed production, those names are going to come up on when it comes to the streaming platform as being part of this cast.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I also think that you're maybe a bit hung up on the sort of streaming movie thing and like this is a bit of a bee in your bonnet. Just think about all those.
I'm just cynical. I'm just cynical about Amazon and what they do to pitch this sort of, especially when they're pitching Innocence and kids shows and a kids sort of format and a talking animals kind of thing. It's pretty lowbrow.
Yeah, but just think, it's a charming kids family movie. Like, that's all it is, Simon. Like, I don't think, it's not the highfalutin nature of Mortal Kombat 2.
No, I'm not suggesting it would be. How could it be? There's so many layers to Mortal Kombat 2. At least 2 layers. All right. So the Sheep Detective is, I guess it's out there. Is it out there in the US already, or did we get it a little bit ahead of the...
No, it's actually, I actually thought we got it a bit ahead of time, but it's a global release on the same time. And I think just by nature of Amazon these days, they kind of need those dates to be similar for when dropping it onto streaming in a few months' time.
Amazon's behind it. Who would have thought? I went along to see the new James Cameron film, which doesn't star 7-foot-tall blue people. It stars a little lady called Billie Eilish. It's called Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard, Hit Me Soft, the tour live in 3D. Whew, that's a lot.
That's also the other title for this movie, this podcast, Simon.
Yes, I know. You mentioned it at the top of the thing.
Screen watching hyphen, hit me hard and soft, colon, it's a long one.
We thought it would look good on a T-shirt. We never did the T-shirt, so here we are.
It's your show. It's your creative vision. This is going to blow people's minds. We're gonna put a 3D camera in the cube with you.
Awesome.
And we'll probably be able to move that to different positions.
So how does that even work, just out of curiosity?
We're gonna have to play some games, but we'll make it look great.
How hard would it be to get a camera on the inside of this box screen?
We want to do it.
Okay, good. The day of a show is for me, it just feels like any day at all. I just feel like I'm like going to hang out with my friends.
The concert film. Are you a fan? Just in general, not Billie Eilish or James Cameron,
No.
just not a fan of the music format. I, on the other hand, am. In recent years, apart from Talking Heads Stop Making Sense being one of the greatest films ever made of any kind, in recent years I have, and I want to say for this podcast, but generally I would have seen them anyway, the Taylor Swift concert film, the Beyonce concert film, and now the Billie Eilish concert film.
Sorry, can I just get a qualifier on that? You also have a lot of spare time in your life, right?
Well, yes, but I'm a film reviewer, so I've got to see these sort of things.
Okay, sorry, go on.
And it's kind of a big deal because sharing a co-directing credit with Billie Eilish is one James Cameron, a man that has spent the last better part of 2 decades creating these cartoon movies about tall blue people that some amongst us have a weird fascination for. In this one, this is his first film. I'm talking about you. Of course I'm talking about you.
Sorry, just because we're getting just personal here, I think that it's great that you saw this in 3D as intended, but also weird that you didn't see the most recent Avatar in 3D.
Oh, that was entirely because of circumstances. I was deep in the wilds of Tasmania, so I had to see it projected on a bedroom sheet in a town hall, which is exactly how it was meant to be seen. But with Billie Eilish's concert movie, does it break new ground? And with James Cameron involved calling the shots, other than the 3D effects, which are pretty spectacular, I don't think it does break any new ground as a concert film. In fact, I would say it's a fairly conventional concert movie that goes between the energy of her performance and the backstage sort of goings-ons that we have seen in any number of concert films, most notably, I guess, the Madonna one, Truth or Dare. But that was and I should say that whereas the Madonna one, which I sort of compare this to, had its own, certainly fit very neatly into the world of Madonna and what she was pushing at that point in time. And I am going back 30 years, so I do appreciate that. With the Billie Eilish one, it also speaks, like the Madonna film, very much to her audience, to her crowd, to what her very truthful, very open, very accepting lyrics mean to her audience and how they came along at a certain time in their lives to help them or to, play some part in discovering who they are as individuals. And that's wonderful. And that's great that it's played up in this. The one big difference the issue I have with concert films in general is when they show the audience either screaming or crying. When you go to a concert, you're not looking around at other people. You are totally fixated on the stage. And you've got to try and find a balance, which I don't think James or Billie do in this, of what's happening up on stage and the performance that she's given and how the crowd reacts to that. There's so many shots of weeping. It looks like a really emotional experience to go to a Billie Eilish concert because there's so many shots in this of crying girls and crying guys. And when it sticks to the 3D footage on the stage and the performer that she is, it's a terrific concert film. And I should point out, I like Billie Eilish, but I don't know any of her album songs or anything else. So I knew like 4 songs from this whole concert movie, but the presentation was very spectacular. I don't think it's going to. It sort of feels like a full stop at the end of a global concert tour that says, "All right, here's the documentary, here's the film that you wanted to see to remind you of all the wonderful moments we had having a concert. Now let's move on." And I think that is largely its main goal, and it certainly achieves that. So certainly for the fans. Well, James Cameron, are you going to go along and see this? You're a James Cameron head. Are you going to see the first James Cameron film that's a non-Avatar film in 20 years?
Well, he's had his name on documentaries, hasn't he? Like some of those deep sea.
Did you watch those?
No.
Okay, you're going to go along and see this?
No.
Huh. Seems like
I'm not going to go and see a Billie Eilish movie. I've got very little interest in Billie Eilish and her music. Like, she's fine, but, it's just not really the sort of thing I'm after in my life. I don't really know why I'd go and see this. The only curiosity I have is just to know what a James Cameron lensed documentary about Billie Eilish might look like, but I don't have enough time in my week to even consider seeing something like this, Simon.
All right. Okay. So it is in cinemas now for fans of either James Cameron or Billie Eilish. Enjoy. What's next?
Next, Simon, very briefly, I just want to give a bit of a heads up to a new TV show that dropped on the Netflix.com this week. It's called Legends. And let's watch a very quick clip and we'll come back. Play the clip, come back. As you probably saw just then, Steve Coogan stars in this. So immediately, wait, Steve Coogan, which was the way that I approached this. Steve Coogan stars in this drama series, runs 6 episodes, set in 1990 London, well, the UK. And it's about the rise of heroin being distributed into the country and the force of customs officials that have been, I'll use the word recruited, but that's probably not quite the right way to phrase it. But the small team of recruits that are leading this sort of drug strike force, and these are recruits who have no experience whatsoever in going undercover or being engaged in any of this kind of work before. They've got no budgets, they've got no resources, but they're going out there and risking their lives to go and do this. It's very funny. It's very dramatic. I've only seen the first episode. My understanding is that it gets a bit more serious as the series goes in and actually starts dealing with a subject matter with the weight that it actually probably deserves. But certainly it's very light on its feet at the very beginning of it. And we sat on the couch watching the first episode last night. I had a great time. It's probably not something I'd feel compelled to watch, like just a binge watch. I think this is maybe something I'll just be doling out an episode like once a night over the next like 6-7 days. But anyway, It's really quite good. I just wanted to flag this out there, give a heads up and say, check this out. It's pretty good. This is one of these shows that has the very strong likelihood of just disappearing into the Netflix system. But I did notice like they're ranking it as like one of their top like 5 or 7 shows or something. So in theory, that means people are watching it on platform. But, I wouldn't expect to see it stick around as a highlighted show for very long.
It's called Legends. It is on the Netflix. We need to get very quickly to our look at the American summer / Australian winter of films that are about to drop.
This is the winter of my content, Simon.
If you're discontent, I'm sure we're going to...
No, my content.
Yes, but we're probably going to reach some discontent over our choices as to what we are most looking forward to.
It is the Screen Watching Podcast.
It is the Screen Watching Podcast. So... I think it used to be Memorial Day used to be the start of the American movie summer. That's been pushed out a bit. I think the general agreement is that maybe Devil Wears Prada 2 / Mortal Kombat 2 has kickstarted the American summer season a couple of weeks early.
I'd actually suggest... So traditionally, like the summer season usually kicks off in May, but I think it's increasingly just getting earlier and earlier.
All right, let's move to what we think are what we're going to say,
what are we looking forward to?
What are we most looking forward to? 1 or 2 movies that we're most looking forward to in the summer.
Okay, so a film which gets released in the summer, but easily could come out through other months as well. Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass. This is not going to be a huge box office thing. If this does more than $20-30 million, I'd be surprised. But this is a new David Wayne theatrical comedy, and that is exciting to me as a proposition. I am super into that. The premise of this one is this idea that couples may have like it's the Celebrity Sex Pass. And in this one, it is a character played by Zoe Deutsch, who is given the opportunity to sleep with John Hamm if, the opportunity presents itself. And so she decides she's going to make this happen.
Interesting. I think
anyway, John Hamm's there playing himself. Yeah. John Slattery's in this in a much bigger role than John Hamm. But, I kind of think there's a bunch of very funny people that are appearing in this with a very silly premise that should be pretty buzzy. And will get no box office, I'm sure, much like no David Wayne film ever does particularly well at the box office. But I love David Wayne movies, and I could not be more excited about this year.
See, this is interesting to me because Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass, which I think was announced at playing at the Sydney Film Festival this year. I think it's coming to Sydney pretty soon. It also features Jennifer Aniston playing herself. And from what I understand, the situation arises because Zoe Deutsch's husband, which is probably Ken Marino in this pass, uses his celebrity sex pass and gets with Jennifer Aniston.
I don't think it'll be Ken Marino. Their age difference is really...
Not sure, yeah.
Quite a difference.
So then in this one, she gets to make moves on John Hamm playing himself. Yes, it does sound interesting and it does sound funny. There's usually a breakout summer hit. There's something that's a bit from left field that will find an audience. I wouldn't be surprised if this was it. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was the Nate Bargatze comedy, The Breadwinner. I make the point in my newsletter during the week that the family comedy, not the animated film where, becomes an event thing like Toy Story 5 is coming out, but the family comedy is a kind of a thing of the past or has been reduced to the small screen. The Breadwinner, the Nate Bargatze screen debut, the comedian who's, very droll delivery, who I quite like, he's got The Breadwinner coming out, which has been compared to Mr. Mum for anyone who's seen the trailer. But that could be the sort of breakout success that the summer has. So we'll wait and see. Something usually connects in a strange way that people don't understand why, and they may be it. Is there another one that's got you all excited?
I'd like to think there's going to be a comedy film that brings us back to the ideas, well, the, old school way of comedies actually being a major proposition at the box office, but I'm skeptical. And it's certainly not going to be a David Wayne film because those films just they've never played before. They're not going to play this year. And also the fact that the celebrity is John Hamm, I feel is maybe a little bit niche. It plays well to me, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
He's your celebrity sex pass.
Oh, look, 100%.
Yeah.
And look, the other film, and this is playing a bit more in terms of, the old school idea of the summer box office, but a late July release, actually it might be August, The End of Oak Street, which we've only seen like a, short trailer from so far. But this is just this idea of a family find that they have. I think their streets has time traveled back to prehistoric times or something. But anyway, cool looking trailer. There's dinosaurs. There's what's her name from the Princess Diaries?
Anne Hathaway. It's the summer of Anne Hathaway. She's got like 4 movies coming out. It's crazy. Yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. From the guy that directed It Follows, which I'm a big fan of, and I'm keen to see what he can do in this sort of bigger budgeted realm.
I like to think he was the director of Under the Silver Lake, but that's just
another good one. Yeah, as well, exactly. So how he's gonna play in that big budget special effecty space. The trailer looks promising. So yeah, The End of Oak Street. You're right. I think it is a late August title. The one I'm probably most looking forward to. I'm playing all my cards here as a bit of a UFO nut, but Spielberg's Disclosure Day is kind of a big deal for me. The fact that Spielberg, who hasn't had an American summer movie, get this, since 2008's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and we all know how well that played. So to see him directing a movie back in the American summer and being back in that alien UFO sort of thing, in which he made his name with Close Encounters and E.T. and those sort of things. I'm keen to see how the aging director sort of still does the American summer popcorn flick. So that's very exciting.
I'm one, excited about seeing that movie. 2, I think it's going to be a good movie. 3, I don't think that film's going to perform very well.
I am sort of that thinking as well. And when I say it's not going to perform very well, I think it'll be a mid-range hit through the summer. Like it'll come in number 8 or number 9 or something like that on the box office chart, which is unheard of for a Spielberg American summer film. But we'll wait and see. It's got all summer to play out. It's coming very early, June 12. It releases in the US, and it does have a very strong cast. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm keen to see how that plays. The talk about... It used to be the crazy conspiracy nuts who sort of delve into the world of UFOs and government conspiracies. Now it's a bit more accepted to talk about it when it's on the front page of the Washington Post and things like that. So maybe this will have a bit broader appeal. Let's hope so. The other thing I'm probably excited for, what are your thoughts on Supergirl? I think it's it's a teetering proposition. It's on the brink of being, it could be huge or it could be a real problem. Do audiences want to see a boozy, obnoxious Supergirl? I'm very excited that Craig Gillespie's involved, the director, because he does really trouble female characters really well. Things like I, Tonya and Pam and Tommy and films like that. But I don't know.
I think it's going to just be a middling proposition.
Really?
Look, I'm very keen on seeing a Supergirl movie on the big screen,
Sure.
particularly one that's good. I've got a lot of enthusiasm for it. I think the take on Supergirl is probably a way more interesting proposition than the idea of, oh, look, it's just Superman's cousin. Like, really, how different is that? I feel that by making her a bit of a messy party girl is actually giving her an interesting dimension. So at least it's a unique take. Second trailer, I thought just, it delivered. It looks like something I want to go and see at the pictures. Do I think it's going to be one of the biggest films of the year? No, but I don't think it's been budgeted to be one of the biggest films either. I think it's just been made to play as as much of a programmer as Summer really sort of provides an opportunity for.
My other observation for the year, and the film that is has had tickets on sales for the large screen since the middle of last year, is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I'm going to make the call here that it doesn't play anywhere near as big as Oppenheimer, and it's going to have trouble traveling through the heartland of America. I don't know how much of they want their spectacle with a side order of classic literature. I think it's going to be an enormous international film. I think it's going to fall towards the bottom end of the American top 10 when the summer plays out. So, do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't disagree at all. Look, it's playing with. It's got a 2-week run before Spider-Man comes out.
Okay, yeah.
The thing that's going in the Odyssey's favor is that I think that there's a massive shift taking place in terms of where box office revenue is coming from the United States and the sorts of viewers that are being drawn to it. So where I think the Odyssey is going to play very well is that it's going to have command of all the IMAX screens.
Yes.
And the idea of going to the movies now has actually become less about the actual movies themselves and more about getting that sort of really big, fulsome IMAX experience.
Sure.
And so I think that anything that has those IMAX screens has a much better chance of pulling in some serious bank in a way that the current sort of vibe around cinema attendance, I don't think necessarily would have held. And an IMAX screen brings a much higher ticket price. And so I think that's where the Odyssey is really going to find a fair bit of uplift.
10 new IMAX screens announced for Sydney and Melbourne here. So I think you're absolutely right. I think the exhibitors are saying, yep, it's become more about the experience than the movie itself.
So those 10, it was actually part of I think it was a 20-screen IMAX rollout. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've looked at this. 20-screen IMAX rollout, but these 10 are just Hoyt cinemas.
Hoyt cinemas
and
with laser.
Is it just Sydney and Melbourne? I thought it was Australia-wide.
I thought it was just Sydney and Melbourne. I wrote about it earlier this week. I'll have to double check. But yeah, anyway, so they've sort of figured out that the big screen format is the way to go, which is great. That's how we love to watch the movies. You mentioned
the Sydney IMAX screen is actually one of, and I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to say it's maybe like the second or third most profitable IMAX screen in the world.
Yeah, it's been a great relaunch. You mentioned Spider-Man: A Brand New Day. I had that pinged as my highest earner of the American summer. I think everyone is so primed. I think everyone is so primed for Marvel content. That's when I say everyone. I think the fans are so primed for Marvel content, and Holland and Zendaya are so beloved as the stars of these films. I think with the doomsday clock ticking down towards December when Avengers Doomsday dropped, I think this Marvel drop in the middle of summer is going to be huge. I think it's the only film that'll hit 500 million at the US box office.
Oh, I think this is $1 billion movie.
Globally, sure. I don't think it's $1 billion domestically, but yeah, I think it'll hit half of that domestically.
Yeah. No, this will be by far the biggest movie of the year. This is the only Marvel film that I think is going to be a huge success this year.
Not Doomsday?
No.
Wow. Why?
Well, it's coming out the same weekend as June.
Yeah.
And I think the heat has gone from Marvel at this point.
Ooh.
I think that unless these Marvel films are standing on their own, I don't think you can count on that same trajectory we used to see with Marvel movies, which is one, have a Marvel movie out and guarantee a certain amount of box office. Okay, but even though this is an Avengers movie, I think there hasn't been a lead up to it. This is a film that's going to have to stand on its own. And I don't know that audience is necessarily there for it. It has been, 7 years since the last Avengers movies at this point. We've got an entirely new generation of teens and 20-somethings that are coming through. And I don't think they have the same attachment to the Avengers as the audience that saw the Avengers, the previous two, make, an obscene amount of money.
Wow, I'm going to sound grab that when this...
It'll do okay. Like, I'm not saying that it's going to be like a massive disaster, but the amount of money they're spending on that movie, which is considerable.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to get the same play. I think that Dune is going to outperform it at the cinema.
Wow, that could be a quote we return to in months to come. That's interesting. But you do think that
And to be clear, I'm way more interested in seeing the Avengers movie than I am Dune. But I don't think that's necessarily holding true for a big swath of the audience.
All right. So that is our American Summer Box Office, Australian Winter Box Office preview. Dan Barrett.
Well, you also had...
What?
You also had on here some questions, Simon, which was Sleeper Hit and Flop Sweat.
Oh, that was from earlier that was from a text like 2 weeks ago.
It was last week, but I was pretty sure we were still doing that. Do you have a sleeper hit for this year?
I think it could be... There's usually a rom-com that breaks out, and I think it's going to be the Monica Barbaro one. I'm just trying to find the name. One Night Only. Callum Turner and Monica Barbaro are right on the cusp of breaking out, and I think that could be the summer sleeper hit if it connects in a way. There's not a film in there that apart from Moana, there's not a film in there that really drives the female moviegoer, and I think that One Night Only could be, and it's from the director Will Gluck, who did Anyone But You, and I think the huge audience of female viewers who came out to see Anyone But You and the Housemaid are going to maybe latch onto that one, so that could be a surprise hit.
Yeah, look, I think that's probably a pretty good call. A film that I think is going to do better than the projections hold for it at the moment. Okay, and look, this is really stepping out on the ledge here. Okay, so hold tight. You'll be like, Dan, what are you saying? This is crazy. But I'm going to say, I think the upcoming Star Wars movie is going to do better than they think it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm keen to see if it can break out of it. It's just a TV show on the big screen, sort of, if there's any of that perception out there. If there isn't, then yeah, it's going to be huge.
Look, I don't think that's really the concern. I think what the concern really is that there's been the sort of main Star Wars movies, and then you've had like these little side projects along the way. And if audiences are looking at this guy, things like Solo are pretty rubbish. Like, I just don't think that this is necessarily going to quite, do much better than, say, Solo did a number of years ago. But the word that I've heard is that it's way better than people actually think that it is when they walk in. So some of the critics I've, followed that have seen the movie, they've said they've seen like 25 minutes of it. I think they may have done like a fan screening somewhere recently, and that first 25 minutes got screened there, and audience is just way more into it than they'd really anticipated. So this may be one of these films which everyone's like, it's a Star Wars movie. There's the assumption it's going to do really well, and it just sort of does what it does. But I think word on mouth on this one is going to be surprisingly high.
I think
and so you might just see a longer tail on this than probably otherwise would have.
That's the other thing I was going to say. It's got all summer to make some bucks. It's out very early in the American summer season. It's got Favreau directing it. He's still held in very high regard as a filmmaker who can bring in the crowds and make crowd-pleasing movies. And I think everyone's hoping that Star Wars can become a box office behemoth, can become a huge cinema franchise again. And if anything can do it at this point in time, given the pop culture influence of Grogu and, the success this show's had on TV, and hopefully it'll be this film. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Is there a stinker amongst them? Like, I'm interested that, Paramount are playing a real nostalgia card this summer. They've rebooted Scary Movie. They've brought back the Jackass team. They're working over some sort of mid-level properties from the past that'll probably sort of clock in at $70 or $80 million at the US box office by the end of the summer. But yeah, whether they've got a real card to play this American summer season is hard to pick.
I think they are, and look, I think this is something you're going to see from Paramount and Warner Brothers should the merger take place. You're going to see a lot more of a play for smaller budget movies like this that are really trading off IP with the hope that they can do some numbers as opposed to like sort of really big budget tentpoles. I think this is just kind of the trend for a set of studios now that just don't have the money to spend.
Yeah.
You got to service that debt. Look, in terms of what are we doing here? It was the
Flop Sweat.
It was the Breakout, wasn't it?
Flop Sweat. Oh, Breakout, yes.
Flop Sweat, sorry. Flop Sweat, you know what? Because I hadn't really looked at, but this is before like, what's a summer movie argument. I was thinking about like The Avengers being my Flop Sweat.
Right.
Okay, but maybe just to speak to that idea of the sorts of movies that are playing in summer, like it seems interesting to me that the current sort of movie market allows for a movie like Avengers and Dune to come out in what is it, like early November?
Doomsday is 18th of December.
18th of December. Okay, sorry, I thought there were earlier propositions than that. Okay, well that just makes sense, a standard sort of Christmas release cycle then. 18th of December, like it seems crazy to me releasing these films like that week before Christmas when it just feels like everyone's at their busiest. But it clearly works. I think the testament is how much those Avatar movies did. The first couple of them show just how much things can play over Christmas.
Exactly,
and then okay, so just in terms of the Flop Sweat, I probably sort of spoke about it earlier. I kind of think that Spielberg movie's just kind of it's just teetering. I don't know it's going to become the success that I think people would kind of like it to be. It would be nice to think that Steven Spielberg will sort of be ending his career with movies like that, sort of still being on top. But I'm just not entirely convinced. The heat's just not there in a way that we're seeing over like Nolan's, Odyssey, which again, I don't think will play as big as people are expecting, but I think it will still do some decent numbers.
If I have to look up and down the list of summer releases, dropping on May 15 is the new Jake Gyllenhaal, Henry Cavill action film In the Grey, which looks every bit as cheesy as A, I hope it is, and B, will be its downfall. So, what's his name? The director, Guy Ritchie. He knows how to shoot action, but this is real lowbrow stuff from him. So, I don't think that's going to last through the summer at all.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie pumps out a lot of movies. Some of them are big successes, other ones just kind of, products, and that to me smells like product.
So that brings us to the end of our, is it still summer or are we into autumn already? That went a long time.
I think we're talking about the 11.5-month summer season.
Find us on the YouTube at Screen Watching or on Facebook at Screen Watching Podcast. I do my little newsletter over on the Substack. It's called Screens Place. Please like, restack, subscribe. I'd appreciate your company. And what do you do, Dan Barrett, when you're not yelling at me?
Look, I do a newsletter called Always Be Watching. It comes out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday you get 2 editions usually. On that Friday you get a TV guide as well as the standard, nonsense that I publish on a weekly basis. But it's a whole bunch of stories about what's happening in the world of TV, streaming TV, and just streaming movies that might be cropping up here and there as well. Bit of video game stuff, like it's all kind of in there.
Always a good read. I remember.
I mean, you didn't read it. You didn't even know what Gary was until you started hearing this podcast.
I remember the last one I read was back in February, which was a really good bit. I mean, I only read half of it, but it was still a good piece of cut and paste information. I'm joking.
And that's what I do. It's a lot of cut and paste information.
I read them, Dan. You know that I read them.
You don't even know what a Gary is. Folks, this has been the Screen Watching Podcast. My name's Dan Barrett. I'm joined here by Simon Foster. We'll be back next week with more pod. Do we know what we're talking about in the next edition?
No, I do not know. I know we got you can thank me later for the ticket to see Mandalorian and Grogu.
But that's not the week after.
That's the week after. No, I don't know what's happening next week.
You know what we're going to do, Simon? I don't know when the embargo breaks on the Star Wars Mando movie.
Yeah.
But maybe we just record our entire podcast from the foyer after we see the movie.
We've tried to do that before and that works really well. We should do that.
But not just a segment. I mean the entire podcast.
Wow. Really? Just sitting out the front on Darling Harbour?
Yeah.
On a cold winter's night at 9:30. Yeah, that will be good.
Well, because there's not a whole lot happening TV-wise for the next few weeks because nothing's being released really right before the Emmy eligibility cutoff.
All right.
Unless there's more surprise Garys in store for us.
How many Garys can there be? All right, well, maybe we can do that. That might be fun. Maybe we could do a video.
You know what? I say that, but that same week, we've also got the release of the very high-profile Netflix series, The Burrows, which drops an entire season on one day. And then also Apple TV's got something which I don't think is an Emmy consideration, but it's a really interesting show called Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed.
Yes, I have heard of all those. They're all okay, so it's quite a big week all around.
Yeah. And then maybe, depending what the embargo is, I might be allowed to talk about Spider Noir, which debuts early the next week.
Cage.
Yep.
God, there is a lot.
And of course, I will be reviewing it only in black and white.
We should do a black and white podcast. That'd be cool. And they do that. They do that, don't they? They re-release things like Mad Max and Batman in just black and white versions, which I've never watched.
No, this isn't a re-release, Simon. This is the same.
No,
day.
I know, but they do that.
Choose.
Yeah, but we could do our podcast in black and white.
Maybe.
Screen watching.
Folks, this has been the Screen Watching Podcast. We'll be back in 7 days' time. We'll see you then.